Hello out there, this is Wakeangel2K1, and I am not done with the Magic the Gathering Legacy collection yet. When I bought the other two figures, I was disappointed that I wasn't able to find her in Toys R Us, because she actually was my favorite. This is Nissa Revane. She's the Green Planeswalker, and she's an elf. I looked up her bio online. It seems that she was exiled from her home village at a young age for curiosity or something, and then she was adopted by a new tribe, and she grew up relatively happily. It's nice to know that someone's backstory doesn't involve selling their soul or getting their entire clan killed. I don't know, it's just nice to have something like that. So I found her at a Barnes & Noble, where they have a lot more of these figures than Toys R Us. If you're still trying to collect this line and you can't find them, I'd say hit up a Barnes & Noble. You might be surprised. And she was only 13 bucks, hence the clearance markdown. So let's take a look at this figure. Let's zoom in nice and close so we can appreciate her details. The figure is fantastically well sculpted, just as all of them are, and her paintwork's pretty good too. All of her little tribal tattoos and the details on her costume are lovingly represented here. Everything is crisp and clean, nothing seems splotchy or faded, and it all seems nice and strong. Her back is this little cape thing, which is very flexible, and they didn't skimp on the details on her back just because it's covering up with a cape. If you look really closely into the top of her hair, she even has a little bit of a crown in there. There we go. Of course, you can also see one little failing there. Like, look at her, how her ear is sort of curled around to hold on to her hair. I don't know, elf ears really shouldn't do that. They should be sticking out more. That's really the only knock I'd have against her. That weird way that her ears are sculpted. Everything else on her looks fine though. She has one accessory. It is this nice little, apparently it's called a sword stick staff. At least that's what I read in the wiki. It's flexible enough to not be brittle, but also stiff enough to not be rubbery. So that's a good quality for a collector's item. So it's something you don't have to worry about breaking if your figure tips over on the shelf, but also not something that would just like bend and floop due to gravity. So yeah, nice accessory. Okay, so let's talk about her articulation. How does this girl move? Okay, so starting with the head, it's on a ball joint. It's a little bit limited by her hair, but you can flex it and make her look up. She can sort of look down a little bit. She can look left and right. It's all fine. Like I said before, her clothing elements are made of a much softer material. See that? Flexes right out of the way. Her little belt thing does that, and her cape gets out of the way. The sleeves on her arms are made of the same flexible material. Although I wouldn't want to pull her arm up too high because it might pull it out. But ball jointed shoulder. Well, it's actually two. Is that a ball joint? I don't even know. It has a good range, however. Bicep swivel, 90-degree elbow with some detents to it. I believe there's about 2 clicks in between there. She has a wrist swivel and a wrist hinge, and that's the same on the other arm. She has like a ball joint in her torso, which her torso doesn't crunch forward very well, but it arches back quite a distance. Let me do, yeah, like spine-breakingly so. So yeah, good range there. It also serves as a de facto waist movement, because it's a ball joint and it can move in any direction. No movement at the waist, that's why it moves up here. And she has nice ball jointed hips, the same as the other two characters in this line I have. But her skirt, it's a little bit more restrictive than the others. Like, there's no slit or cut in the skirt, so if you try to move her legs, the skirt just kind of pulls them back in. Like if they had like made a subtle little cut, like Maybe if they made a slit up the back of it so that it could part ways, then you could get more movement out of her legs. But the joints are there. If it wasn't for the skirt, you'd have a lot more range there. She has really good double jointed knees. And she has ankle movement. They can move like this, they can move like that, and they can rotate. So yeah, overall really nice articulation, easily on par with, say, a Marvel Legends figure or anything like that. So this is a really nice figure. Like I said, out of all the Magic the Gathering Legacy Edition figures, she was my favorite. I liked her so much that I actually went through the trouble of tracking her down in a different store to get her. But, what happened to this line? Why is it that I'm getting them on clearance racks rather than seeing their second wave come out? Well, I think I can speculate as to what happened. What happened to this line then? Funko, as you may be familiar with the name, is more famous for their pop vinyls. I mean, they license everything, from Guardians of the Galaxy to frickin' Sharknado. And they made pop vinyls of all 6 of these characters. But what happened to this line? This is their real attempt to create a collector-grade, highly articulated line. I mean, they're even advertised for ages 14 and up. These are collector's grade figures, which are supposed to be right up there with the Marvel Legends. I think the problem comes with these prototype images. Look how cool they look in the prototype images. I mean, right there, you see the elf has a completely different sculpt for her hair, which looks more dynamic, and her ears don't do that whole curling inwards at the tips thing. She also has darker paint applications on elements of her costume and her tribal tattoos. And, well, look at that big saber-toothed lion bear looking guy. Look at him. He looks really cool. All the details and the paint job, and this is a fantastic looking figure here. Let's see what he looked like once he got a retail release. It's kind of embarrassing to compare the two, isn't it? I mean, forget the sculpt. The sculpt still looks okay, even though they replaced one of the shoulder pauldrons with that cape thing. But look at his paint job. I mean, the retail release paint job cannot live up to the prototype image's promo shot by a long shot. I mean, all those fantastic details are almost completely lost in this seal of mushy white. I mean, if you look really closely, you can see that his braids and all the details are still sculpted in there, but without a black wash or you know, details to pick things out, it all just looks like this big white mush. It looks like somebody sculpted him out of marshmallow flush. He looks like a snowman, really. And that also affected this guy. The sculpt is still there, but the paint job of the retail release just doesn't work. He almost looks kind of derpy and silly, which is such a shame. Engineering and everything is still in there, and these had the capabilities of being really great collector's grade figures. For some reason, they decided to skimp on the paint budget at the last minute. Now, it didn't affect the lady figures too much. Like I showed before, they still look pretty darn fantastic. But, you know, for these guys, the lack of good paint apps really hurt their figures. And I think the fact that these were advertised as collector grade and yet skipped on the paint budgets really is what killed this line. That's the sad truth.